Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another round Basis Picks. As always, please like and subscribe, share with a friend, a colleague, a relative, an associate, an enemy, any and all in between. It's appreciated. Luckily, got a pretty short episode today for the pure fact there's only one real card to speak about, which is good for me because I have got a busy weekend and I can't let it be consumed by boxing. That being said, there was 4 fights I wanted to talk about on the Jerome versus David Avanesyan fight card. However, one of them has actually now been changed, so I can no longer really give my thoughts on that. Jalil will be taking on Kwame Ritter instead of the original opponent he had, which I think was Manuel Gallegos. I believe he was like 28-2 or 32-2 or something like that. I don't know what's happened, but obviously he's out now. But yeah, Jalil will still be on the card. Kwame Ritter, I believe, is 9-1, but he did lose his last fight, and that was a year ago, July. So yeah, he pretty much is being brought in last minute opponent. Now we know that last minute opponents can be tricky, but I've got a lot of faith in Jalil to get the job done. So I'm gonna assume he's probably going to get a stoppage in this one, and I'll kind of leave it there. Now let's move up the card a little bit and let's look at Sky Nicholson versus Diana Vargas. Interesting fight from the perspective that Diana, I believe, is Dominican, heavy-handed, 19-1 as a fighter with 12 KOs. So in the women's division, that's almost like having a 100% knockout ratio. The level of competition she's been fighting hasn't been great, but that doesn't always tell the story, because we've seen it on many occasions. Sometimes people have very poor opposition, then all of a sudden they get that big test or that bigger test and they rise to the occasion. So look, with that, you can't really take too much at face value of the record. But digging a bit deeper into Diana Vargas, as I said, very heavy-handed, but not great movement and just quite slow and cumbersome. Now someone like Sky Nicholson, who is very much a hit and not get hit type of fighter, very good footwork, movement, and she has very long arms as well. I haven't actually been able to gauge the size between the two. I haven't seen the weigh-in of them, but I do think that Sky is the slightly taller and rangier opponent, which she has been for almost every single fight she's had at 126. So all of that gets to play into her hands, so she can actually attack and box from the outside. Now I do think that she's going to try and hold her feet a little bit more in this fight, to try and put a bit more purchase and a bit more oomph and mustard on the punches. But she won't be holding her feet for too long, for the simple fact of, Diana definitely has punching power based on, the record. Now, if Diana Vargas was more of a pressure fighter, she's just going to barrel forward and just wing shots in like Erica Cruz, then I would say that, Sky Nicholson would probably have a lot of issues. But Diana's a bit more of she likes to sort of try and pick spots and find her moments to connect, and because of that, I don't think she's going to have the timing or the speed to be able to catch Sky Nicholson in between, especially considering Sky Nicholson doesn't throw combinations. She throws one punch at a time and gets out of there. So I can see this fight being very one-sided, like a lot of Sky's other fights, and I don't think she's going to have the issues of like fading down the stretch. I literally think she's going to be able to fight most of this fight at her pace while having to be very mindful of the power. But I'm going to go with Sky Nicholson for a unanimous decision on this one. Even though I think she's going to be trying to put a bit more mustard on the shots, I don't think she's going to have enough to get Diana Vargas out of there. Especially if we look at the Lucy Wildheart stoppage, it was a very soft stoppage. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that. Now, the most interesting fight on the card thus far, Jalil Major Hacket versus Pete Dobson. Is it Pistol Pete Dobson? Now, it's ironic that his name is Pistol Pete and he's actually very slow moving, but for some reason he's always able to kind of get to the target. So while his movement and his speed is very slow, he's actually got good timing, and he's got very good defense. He's able to soak up a lot of damage early on, and then sort of step on the gas later on in rounds when his opponent starts to get a bit tired. We saw him do this with Conor Benn up at, they was fighting I think 156 pounds each. It was just above 154. Now that probably benefited Dobson as well as maybe disadvantaged Conor in that sense. He's not a big 147 guy, so fighting up at 154 and slightly above is always going to be a bit of an issue, whereas Dobson floats between 147 and 154, but not having to cut those other 7 pounds. I think we saw it in his overall resistance and his work rate and his engine. In this bout it is 147, so he has to make the weight that he hasn't done for a while, or at least very close to it. And Hacket is also there, but he's younger, a lot fresher, probably hasn't got his man strength fully yet, but he can punch correctly, and he's been brought up in the Mayweather gyms, so you can't underestimate the level of that doghouse sparring that they do in those gyms. Sometimes it can take the toll on you, but that's usually sort of in the mid to later parts of your 20s. Like he's still fresh at this point, so I can see Dobson basically trying to hang back in those first couple of rounds, trying to just get a measure of the younger, hungrier fighter. But I can also see, while doing that, him taking a few shots bigger than maybe what he was expecting to take. And I can see Jalil opening up and sort of trying to go for that early knockout. I don't think he's going to get it though. I think it's actually going to play and be a very he's going to have to come through those first couple of rounds. Then I feel like he's going to have to try and manage the gas tank sort of in the middle rounds before. I reckon at that point Pete Dobson is going to be able to get some work off, maybe cause some problems, cause some issues, similar to what he did with Conor Benn. And I can think he may even have like some pretty big successes. But I do think that Hacket is going to be able to find those openings from about round 6, be able to sort of get himself back in a commanding lead. And because Dobson's not just going to play on the back foot and not try to engage, I can see a scenario where he gets caught in between the salvos, between sort of round 7 to 8, and ends up getting taken out either via a straight count out or via a referee stopping the fight. So my official prediction is going to be Jalil Hacket, showing how special he actually is as a prospect and as a very young talent, with a late round stoppage. I'm going for around 8 TKO for Hacket. Now moving on to the main event. Look, I don't really have to speak too much about this one. David Avanesyan is he's a European level fighter, a high level European level fighter. Like he doesn't come to lay down. He's always in there, always trying to work and always trying to give the best account of himself. The problem being, because he is, for the most part, he is a pressure fighter. He's a come forward pressure fighter, sort of tuck up behind the high guard, try to catch what you're giving him on the gloves, sometimes try to counter you, or just try to sort of get you after you've launched your attack when you're back in your transition. The problem he's going to have is Boots Ennis hits very hard on the front foot and on the back foot from both stances, and this is only going to be more wear and tear on David Avanesyan. Now I think that because he's gonna come forward and he's gonna try to win, he's not just gonna be there to survive rounds. He's gonna make those attacks. He's gonna get caught in those openings. I think he's gonna get caught early, and I can see him possibly getting dropped maybe in the second or the third round, getting back up, maybe trying to rally back, having sort of one last stance. But I can see probably from a transition from the orthodox to the southpaw stance, I can see a scenario where a left straight or a left like a screw shot comes from that southpaw stance in about round 5, which just scrambles the senses of Avanesyan, and then he hits the deck and is not able to you know, get up before the count, or is not able to continue once trying to get up from the count. So my prediction is going to be that Jerome Boots Ennis wins this fight via KO in round number 5, doing it 1 round better than Terence Crawford did back in 2022. Okay, so that's my opinions on the fights this weekend. Leave yours down below. Let me know what you guys think. If there's any other fights I have missed, not just from that card, anywhere else, put them down. I'll give you a brief summary of that. But yeah, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you guys very much for watching. For right now, it's Basis Picks. Lock.